Our Talk Vietnam this week delves into the world of stand-up comedy in Ho Chi Minh City through a group called Ping-A-Ling. It is on this stage where Vietnamese and expat comedy enthusiasts alike come to perform, share stories, and above all, have a good laugh. Everything from stand-up comedy.
So what I usually do is when a kid annoys me, I tell them the truth about Santa.
To an improv session where I got the chance to sing my complaints to a pretend bartender.
Do you have a problem at hand? You know I can understand.
Hello, bartender. My problems are many. I cannot say. My child is a tyrant. He runs around all day.
Such showcases of Ping-A-Ling are the brainchild of American stand-up comedian Betterby.
Và con trai là só yếu.
That's a pineapple.
Whatever. I'm married to a Vietnamese woman who happens to teach Vietnamese, and I can't even say coconut boy correctly.
Ben is well known in the southern metropolis for his workshops, hoping to teach and bring the art of comedy to all. Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam. Today we'll talk all about Ben Betterby's journey in bringing more comedy, improv, as well as storytelling to Vietnam. His many workshops have helped people become more confident and be able to share more of their stories. So let's learn more about their shows. While Ping-A-Ling only came to be in 2017, Ben has been holding workshops since 2013. His three main workshops include Comedy Saigon, Improv Saigon, and Storytelling Saigon, each focusing on a particular genre of stage performance, and all aimed towards getting students into the spotlight and expressing themselves. Thank you so much, Ben, for allowing me to come on to Ping-A-Ling stage. I had a blast with a very fun crowd.
Oh, thank you so much for being there. We had a wonderful time having you.
Yes, so I'm very curious, as I'm sure a lot of our audience are, about the name of Ping-A-Ling. What does Ping-A-Ling mean?
Actually, what it means is the excitement right before you perform. Some friends and I, we call it like pre-performance tingling. And so we ended up just shortening that to Ping-A-Ling.
Yes. Now, what motivated you in the first place to kind of open up and start up Ping-A-Ling?
We were doing workshops for Storytelling Saigon and Comedy Saigon and Improv Saigon. And we were spread out doing the workshops in different coffee shops around town. And we wanted a central place where we could do them. And we wanted to be able to control the environment a little better for the workshops, because we noticed that people would practice at the coffee shops and be ready to perform, but then when we went to a venue and they got on a stage, on a mic, in front of a bunch of people,
was a different environment.
Very different, and it was a little shocking for some people. The bright lights, the darkness in the audience. So we sort of decided to create a little workshop space that had a small stage and simulated what a performance would be like.
Exactly, and that was the stage that I was on yesterday.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the different entities of Ping-A-Ling. You mentioned before, there's Comedy Saigon, there's Improv Saigon, as well as Storytelling Saigon. Tell us about how they're different.
So we started with stand-up comedy through Comedy Saigon, and that's where one person comes on stage and they talk to the audience and they tell jokes and the audience laughs. Hopefully.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, right?
We're getting better. It's a difficult thing. And we started with that, and we noticed that some people would come to the workshops, but then they would get a little scared. It's a very scary thing to do, to try to make a room full of strangers laugh. And so we decided to create Storytelling Saigon, because we felt that getting up and telling a personal story is a little easier for some people, and that's been a wonderful thing. It's been really enjoying to watch people come and just tell stories from their life, from their day-to-day, about their relationships. We get to hear so many different amazing stories. And generational, too. We have older people come and perform. And then some of those people decide that they are really confident in their performing abilities, and then they move up to the stand-up comedy workshops. We then noticed that there was still a jump between the storytelling and the stand-up comedy. It's a little easier to get up and tell a story when the audience is not expected to laugh. And we came up with the idea for Improv Saigon. So improv is where you're on stage with a group of people trying to make the audience laugh. And that's a little bit easier.
Yes, exactly, because you have other people to kind of work along with you.
Yeah, you saw that last night because you were on stage with a few other people, and then at that moment, maybe if you didn't have anything funny to say, you knew that someone else would.
Exactly.
So you have a bit of a shield between you and the audience. And then after you feel confident there, then you can move up to standing on the stage alone.
That's true. So it's a progression from kind of, just telling stories, public speaking, kind of gaining that confidence, and then working with others, and then working eventually by yourself.
Each of Ben's workshops at Ping-A-Ling, whether they be comedy, storytelling, or improv, start with warm-up sessions where the students get to bond and feel more relaxed around one another. The classes include students of all ages.
Those are great as environments for understanding humor, understanding what makes you laugh, why it makes you laugh, and how you can do that for other people.
From brainstorming ideas and plots of jokes and stories to practicing acting it out in gibberish, the workshops do not only teach performance skills, but are also a great confidence booster for many.
I was in my shell for sure. There's a very large difference between me as a person before and me as someone after. Now, it wasn't directly the workshop that did it, but it was the key. And then another girl, I broke up with her because she thought we were dating. I was able to get confidence on stage and write jokes, which I didn't know was possible until I did the workshop.
Ben is praised for creating a relaxed environment of learning.
I think he's able to really break things down. It's a really fun way, and I was scared before doing comedy, but now that I'm doing it, I highly encourage anyone to try it out, because anyone could be funny, and Ben really walks you through the process and how to write a joke.
Ở đây thì rất là tuyệt vời, tại vì Ben có khả năng giống như là không phải là một người thầy nữa, mà Ben tới đây giống như là hòa đồng như là bạn luôn á, giống như là mình cùng chung sinh hoạt một câu lạc bộ, mình nói, mình giới thiệu, mình vui chơi với nhau, không có giống như là học.
The workshops put the students literally in the spotlight as they're given a chance to practice telling stories and performing comedy on Ping-A-Ling's stage. Overall, Ping-A-Ling offers a platform for members to not only learn, become more confident, but also make new friendships along the way.
Can you explain a little bit about the type of comedy that you try to strive towards, in your workshops?
I personally subscribe to the harmony theory of laughter, which is where if the performer or performers are in harmony with the audience, then an atmosphere is created where everybody feels relaxed. And then if anything comes along to sort of nudge against that harmony, the audience can signal that they want to restore the harmony through laughter. And that may seem a little complicated, but if you were at work, you had an office meeting, there's a bit of an awkward silence, and then the funniest guy or girl in the office, they'll say something, and then everybody laughs, and that releases tension, and it signals to the group, oh yeah, we're in this together. And so once I started to see that making people laugh is all about establishing first a harmony, then things started to click. So we don't really try to teach anyone any specific style. We try to introduce people to all the different styles of comedy, help them find their own style, their own voice, and then we try to help them in a supportive environment learn how to exercise that voice and learn how to make it work on stage.
For a lot of us, myself included, who do not know much about stand-up comedy and comedy in general, the art form is very diverse and very creative. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
There is stand-up comedy, and that's where one person is behind a mic and they say things and people laugh. And there are lots of different ways that they can make the audience laugh. So you could be a little more physical, you can do stories, you can do anecdotes, you can do funny voices, you can do accents. There are lots of different styles. We tend to focus on the storytelling component, and also we also like for our performers to try to teach the audience. Information is interesting to you when it is both unique and useful. And the more useful it is to the audience, the more they listen. Oh, I can use this. And then the more unique your perspective is on that information, the more excited they get and the more they'll laugh. Let's say you're having a problem with your boyfriend or your husband, and it's a really stressful situation for you, and you don't know how to solve it, and you go and you talk to, let's say, your mom about it. And she kind of laughs at you, and she says, well, you know, it's not something you should really worry about. And you say, why? You know, I'm so angry at him. And she says, well, you know, my mother always told me, don't be angry at someone, because while you're angry at them, they're somewhere eating noodles.
Yes.
And I heard that story from a Vietnamese friend of mine, and I thought that was beautiful. It was amazing, because it says something to you. It says you shouldn't waste time being angry at someone.
I mean, it's funny at the same time as it's very informative, and it gives you kind of this, you know, comfort.
Yeah, it's a unique perspective on something that's very useful to you. Don't waste time being angry at someone, especially if they're not there. You know, you could choose anything, but the idea of them sitting somewhere eating noodles is really just humorous.
Did you feel like in the years that you were here, the stand-up comedy scene was kind of on the rise? Because that's a feeling. There's a number of different kind of shows that you can go to here in the city.
Yeah, I remember my friend and I, Dan, him and I came here from Korea, and we had performed in Korea once or twice. And we got here and we wanted to perform here. And we would go to English language open mics across the city. And we would go and perform, and we would try to do stand-up comedy. And we weren't very good back then. And we'd go back the next week, and the poster would be changed. It would say, English language, open mic, all performers welcome, music only.
Oh,
so,
okay.
We then decided, well, we need to have a comedy open mic. So we started one, and that was a lot of fun. We went up on the roof of a restaurant, and they let us perform there, and no one came to the show. There was an old guy in the back of the room, and the whole show he laughed.
Really?
Yeah, he laughed the whole show.
He was enjoying it.
Yeah, we thought we were amazing. We thought, this is it. We know what we're doing. We're really great. And then after the show, we went out there and we tried to talk to him, and he was Russian, and he didn't speak a word of English. So he had just been laughing at us, not knowing what we were doing or what. Over time, we got some extra people to come down, and then we started doing workshops, and now we've really grown the scene.
Hailing from Arkansas in the United States, Ben began traveling in Asia in 2009. He would eventually spend the next 3 years living in South Korea. Here, he also pursued his lifelong passion of performing stand-up comedy, beginning at mostly small open mic shows. It was in 2012 that a trip to Vietnam led to his decision of moving and settling in the Southeast Asian country. In the southern metropolis of Ho Chi Minh City, Ben began performing more and more shows, starting up comedy workshops in local cafes for all those interested since 2013.
From when and where did you first kind of develop this love for comedy?
I've heard a quote, I'm not sure who said it. Sometimes in life, comedy is not what you do, it's what happens to you. So I've met some people who have a sensitivity to the world around them and an awareness of humor. And it seems that they all latched onto that from a very young age. I remember when I was, I think 6 or 7, I had my first day of school. Yes. And I had my little lunchbox. And I was coming home from school, and the crossing guard, she was holding up the sign, and she goes, "How was school?" And I remember walking down, my head was down, and I said, "Ugh, another day, another $1." And she laughed. And it really made me, I don't know, I remember that laugh to this day. It made me feel amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I went home, I told my family about it till they were sick of hearing it. And then...
Your first official joke.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm very proud of that joke. And ever since then, I've done everything I can to sort of make as many people laugh as possible. A lot of my teachers in school weren't too happy with that. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to study as much as I could the comedy section. We had like a DVD shop kind of thing in town, and I would go by on Fridays, and the whole weekend I would just study those tapes.
Who were some of kind of your favorite comedians, and what qualities of these comedians did you admire so much?
I remember I heard an interview with Chris Rock, and then I read a little bit more about how Chris Rock prepares his specials. So you watch a Chris Rock special on TV, and it's amazing. It's an hour of perfect comedy, and then I learned that behind the scenes there's a massive amount of work there. So what he will do is he will prepare a new 5 minutes every night and go on stage and perform it in front of an audience. New 5 minutes every night, and then he'll go back through that and listen to it, and he'll transcribe it. He'll write every word down, and then he'll highlight or underline the things that got laughs. And then he'll put those together, and after a while, that leads him to having an hour and a half of material he feels confident with. And then he will take that and perform it all over the world for 2 to 3 years. And it'll grow into this 90 minutes of material that he will then shoot, and they edit it down, and you watch that 60 minutes. And I think when I learned that opened the door for me, because I used to go and perform, and I would study myself, and I would compare myself to the greats, and I would get a little sad sometimes because I was not anywhere near them, and I didn't know why. And then I started, when I found that out, I started doing the same thing. So now I try to perform as much as I can, and it's always new every time. And I record every set, and I write down the things that work, and then I revisit that in 6 months, all the things that worked, and then I start performing that again, and then at the end of the year, I put on a one-man show. Yes. And I'm really proud to announce that I've now done that 3 times. Mm-hmm. I have 3 90-minute one-man shows that I've performed. And the last time we did it, it was really good, and I'm starting to finally be proud of the work that I'm putting out there.
I'm like, what does comedic mean? And she says, "Oh, you're doing good." Một ly cà phê sữa đá, 1 ly sữa và đá và cà phê và ly.
In Betterby.
Oh man, this guy has done wonders for the local comedy scene. Please put your hands together for the very funny Betterby!
Over his years of living in Vietnam, Ben has well incorporated his connection to his host country into many performances.
This is it. I wanted to perform, especially tonight, for my wife. Vợ của anh đẹp gái quá. And she told me to say that. I don't know what it means.
Ben brings a really unique style. He's a very relaxed, and he has this very odd sense of humor, which is really good. And he's able to really relate and bridge the culture of both, American culture, but also Vietnamese culture, given he's been here for a while.
Good night, saw you.
He's hilarious. He's always funny. I wish I could be as funny as he is.
Ben dedicates his time to preparing new ideas for comedy shows. He edits many of his videos, and he also records his jokes. Ben and many of his friends share that, like all things, comedy is a learning curve for him, and he wasn't very good at it in the beginning.
Over time, he really learned how to do it. And learning how to do it inspired him to want to help others to learn how to do it. So I was one of the people that he helped.
It was Ben's own journey in discovering the ins and outs of the comedy world that became his motivation to continue his passion, and above all, work hard to share it with hundreds of Vietnamese and expats over the span of 6 years.
Tell us about that time. What were you talking about on stage at that particular moment that stuck with people so much?
I would say it would probably have to do with my wife. So back when we first started dating, I started talking about the difficulties we were having, because I realized that I mean, not really. I don't know. I just needed to talk about it, and I got on stage and I started talking about it, and I noticed that the guys in the audience would listen. And then they would look at their girlfriend, the girl with them. They'd look at the girl, and then the girl would laugh, and then the guy would laugh.
Okay. Listen, I'm just gonna see how she reacts first, and then I'll react.
Yeah, and then I realized in that moment that it was important for me to talk about things that everybody could relate to. So now what I try to do is I try to talk about things where half the people in the room know about it really well, and the other half of the room also know about it really well, but from a different perspective. And then I try to bring both sides together and in some sort of shared understanding. I also think that we have a tendency, what is the expression? The grass is always greener
on the other side.
On the other side.
Yes.
I remember in Korea they used to say the neighbor's pig is always much fatter.
And in Vietnam, it's not as funny. When you stand on one mountain or one hill, you look to another hill.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, so I realized that everybody is going through something, and that everybody thinks that thing they're going through, that they're the only one going through it. And when I get up on stage and I say, no, I mean, I have problems with my girlfriend or my wife, and she has problems with me, and this is my perspective on it, and that's her perspective. Everybody just feels a little better. That's what I'm most proud about. Is I've had people tell me that they've gone home and they've talked to their partner, and they worked through some stuff. They said, we hadn't really thought about it the way that you had, and that really helped us, talk about some things, and that makes me feel good. Like I put some love in the world. I was like, oh man, I need a job.
Today, Ben is having a comedy practice session with someone very special in his life, his wife, V. As a confidant and a longtime audience of comedy, V also regularly gives Ben comments and suggestions on how he could improve his acts.
Anh Ben thì là đam mê về hài, còn mình bản thân mình thì là rất là thích diễn. Cho nên khi mà hai người gặp nhau thì hai người cùng chia sẻ một cái đam mê ở trên sân khấu. Cả hai đều rất là thích đứng trên sân khấu.
It was also through the comedy stage that Ben and V met.
Lần đầu tiên mình gặp Ben và mình xem Ben biểu diễn trên sân khấu á, thì mình thấy Ben, anh chàng này rất là có duyên. Mặc dù là người nước ngoài nhưng mà biết rất là nhiều về văn hóa Việt Nam và anh rất là trân trọng văn hóa Việt Nam. Và mình bắt đầu là để ý anh Ben từ lúc đó. Cho nên là show diễn nào thì mình cũng đến để ủng hộ, giống như là một fan thầm lặng của Ben.
Ben and V share that their first face-to-face encounter saw the pair on stage, improvising an English and Vietnamese cải lương battle.
Tối mừng ăn quài tay chinh.
I want to eat French fries.
For the couple, laughter is what keeps their relationship strong.
You know you found the one. Not when it's easy, but when it's hard and yet you wanna work on making it easy. So I mean, we fight, we have troubles, we have difficulty, but the way we show love is by laughing.
V was also instrumental in setting up Ping-A-Ling and supporting Ben's passion for developing the comedy scene.
Ben là một người rất kiên trì và cứ cặm cụi đi rồi mời gọi người này tham gia workshop, mời gọi người kia tham gia workshop. Rồi sau khi mà anh biểu diễn trên sân khấu xong thì anh lại xuống bắt tay nói chuyện với lại mọi người. Anh có một cái tâm huyết rất là lớn. Mình muốn là sát cánh bên anh để mà giúp cho anh thực hiện được cái ước mơ trở thành nghệ sĩ hài của mình.
How has it been kind of being a son-in-law to a Vietnamese family? Are there any kind of funny stories behind cultural differences and trying to win over your Vietnamese parents-in-laws?
I went to her house for the first time. She left with the family to go to the market and do some shopping, and she had a pug. And it's just fat, wheezing pug with this just forever smile on its face. And while she was gone, I thought, oh, I'll teach the dog how to do a trick. I got some treats out of the fridge, and I took the dog and I put it up on the kitchen table. And you know, I just kept saying, like, sit, sit. And he just looked at me like, and I'd like push his back down, you know, and be like, sit, and give him the treat. He would just pop right back up. I did that for like an hour, and he wouldn't learn it. And, you know, I'd wanted to give her that as like a present, you know, like give her family that.
Exactly.
They all came back from the market, the mom and the dad and her sister. And they came in, and she looked at me, and she looked at the dog on the kitchen. She goes, table, and she goes, what are you doing? And I was like, I was trying to teach the dog a trick. And she goes, oh, he knows a trick. Check this out. Ngồi xuống. And he just went right down.
The dog didn't speak English.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought that through.
So little stories like that, you know, about kind of adapting into the Vietnamese family. Now let's talk about one of the kind of the first entities of Ping-A-Ling and the workshops, and that is storytelling. At the end of these workshops, there are usually showcases where people come up to perform their stories, and they have a live audience. Yes. If you can please share with us some of the stories that stuck to your mind over the many showcases that you've had.
So we've seen some people that have really come out of their shells. I remember we had one lady. She first came to us, and she was having trouble finding her story. And we were sitting down with her, and you know, we were working with her on finding it. And then eventually she said, well, there was this one time when I went to this dance school and became a ballerina, but I don't know.
Yeah, she had an amazing story,
Yeah.
but just not a way to tell it yet.
Yeah, and we had to dig in there, and it turned out when she was 6, she'd always wanted to be a dancer, and then she went to school, and everyone laughed at her and said she couldn't be a dancer because she was short and maybe a little chubby. She eventually stopped dancing, and she became a very successful businesswoman. Yes. And then she was in Hanoi and in her 30s, and she was walking home from work, and she saw this sign for you know, to join a dance school and learn to do ballet, and she showed up, and she told us this amazing story about how, you know, she was this woman in her 30s dancing with a bunch of teenagers, and everyone in the audience was there with her. And even though she'd come to us in the beginning not confident in her ability to tell stories and not able to really live in the moment on stage. She did it to 100% in that performance.
It must be wonderful to see kind of many of the people joining in your workshops kind of transform over time of the workshop, becoming not only more confident, but being able to share their story and process their own feelings through it. Do you feel that?
Public speaking is, I think, a fear for some people. I know that in the beginning I was very afraid of it. And my hands would shake and my mouth would get dry and I would get really sick before performing. And then somewhere along the way I read that, you know, that's not fear of public speaking, that's excitement.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's where we kind of came up with the term Ping-A-Ling,
yes.
Right? Because it's not, you know, you get like, you can look at it like, oh no, I'm getting sick, I'm getting nervous, but we try to teach people to look at that not as a bad thing, but as a,
Yeah, I'm about to get on stage,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my best, and that's a really positive way to look at it.
The showcases after each workshop are a chance for the students to put into practice what they've learned. For Improv Saigon, it's time for teamwork to shine.
It's fun to turn up and go up on stage and know that you'll be able to create something, that when we do a scene, when we do an activity, something good will come out of it because we're there supporting and helping each other.
Wee Lei has been taking Ben's workshops since 2015. From being a newbie in the comedy scene, Wee Lei went on to win many prizes, including the first place in the 2018 Ho Chi Minh City heat of the Vietnam Amateur Comedy Competition.
Thực ra là cái học về hài kịch đó là một phần phụ thôi, nhưng mà cái phần chính là có rất là nhiều cái kỹ năng về mặt là giao tiếp và gọi là mình đọc được cái cách mà người khác phản ứng, phản xạ trong những cái khi mà mình diễn, và đồng thời là nó cũng rất là hỗ trợ mình trong những cái kỹ năng mềm ở trong cái cuộc sống rồi mình giao tiếp với người khác.
That shift from being incredibly awkward with it to you know, beginning to feel a little bit more natural is that's a big moment, you know, for any of us, and that's exciting.
Whether it be taking someone to the professional level as a stand-up comedian or to simply give one a confidence booster the next time one appears in front of the public, it is Ben's hope to bring more laughter and positivity to all those who join.
Over the years that you've done the workshops, you've received more and more kind of Vietnamese participants. How have, you know, you've seen kind of the Vietnamese participants in the workshop evolve and be able to tell their story? I mean, public speaking is a skill that many young people in Vietnam are still seeking.
I've noticed there's a bit of an age gap in that younger Vietnamese people are more confident on stage than some of the older Vietnamese people we've had in the workshops. But in our workshops, we tend to focus on deeply personal stories, especially with storytelling. A lot of times, the things people learn in public speaking classes, they don't actually correlate to good storytelling on stage. So to give an example, if you're giving a business presentation, a lot of times just giving the numbers, giving the presentation, not putting yourself into the presentation is a better thing to do. And so what we're able to do is help people to develop maybe a more artistic style of public speaking. And the feedback we get from people after the workshops is that it has helped them in their ability to give good presentations, mainly because their stage fright is diminished.
Yes. Now, I had a blast at the improv show and working with the different team members there on stage. How does teamwork and how does kind of the improv workshop kind of provide this environment for people to thrive more and be able to explore more their skills?
The Improv Saigon, we had to spend a lot of time learning how to work as a team in a creative environment. And we're trying to make art on the spot. In that moment, there's a massive amount of trust required. As you saw, you have to trust that the other person is not going to let you down. Yes. And you have to know that they trust that you won't let them down. And I've learned that on stage. But in improv, it's the most important thing, is to not think, to just do. Yeah, just do, no filter. From that, you know, harmony is there if you trust each other. And even if you do mess up, the group comes together and laughs it off. The audience is part of the group, they laugh it off, and you keep going. So what we've really kind of focused on with the improv is having the group work well together and trust each other.
Ben draws a lot of inspiration from his daily life in Vietnam. Today, he is giving himself the challenge of taking up the role of a banana vendor.
Cái này bao nhiêu tiền?
10.000 một ký.
10.000 một ký. Cái này bao nhiêu ký? Can I ride on it? Có thể anh đi xe. Chui! Mua chui đi! Chui ngon quá! Ngon quá! Mua chui! Mua chui! Không phải cái này, không phải cái này. Mua! Cái này nhỏ nhưng mà ngon. Chết một cái! Anh muốn đi!
Ben shares that it was the smiles of Vietnamese people that was his first impression of the country, and that continues to be one of the reasons he chooses Vietnam as his second home.
Do you get inspiration from the Vietnamese people you meet as well as the Vietnamese language for your own shows?
Here, I mean, everybody's a character. Everybody's so unique and special, and especially the older Vietnamese. So I love to go hang out with older Vietnamese people as much as I can. Just the way everybody moves differently, and they speak differently, and they're so confident in who they are. And I get to, whenever I'm around them, it kind of rubs off on me. And then when I take that and I go on stage and I feel more alive and I feel more free to be who I am. And that translates to the audience. The audience really does want to see someone be themselves.
Yes. Throughout this process of, you know, from that age of being 6 and telling that first joke to the crossing lady to now, you know, running your own workshops, holding shows here in Vietnam. How important is comedy in your life?
Comedy has given me so many things. It's given me my friends. It's given me, you know, my wife. It gives me a reason to get up out of bed every day. It's given me the opportunity to practice a lot of skills. Teamwork, working independently on projects. It's given me something to be proud of. And it's given me a confidence in my day-to-day life that was missing. You know, if you can get in front of a room full of strangers and you can try to make them laugh and they laugh, you're never scared again.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, your inspiring story of kind of bringing comedy, but overall confidence and the ability to share with others to people here in Vietnam, both young and old.
I want to say I'm so thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And that has also wrapped up this edition of Talk Vietnam with Ben Betterby, learning more about Ping-A-Ling as well as the different comedy, improv, and storytelling aspects of Ping-A-Ling. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time here on Talk Vietnam. Goodbye for now.